Hello, everybody. This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks. I'm here with Yvette Carnell of Breaking Brown, and we're also coming from Your Black World. And we're coming here with an active week that Black America has just went through. We've seen everything from black men shot down by cops to an ambush in Dallas, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. We're going to talk about everything that's went on. Before I start, I actually wanted to kind of give a shout out to someone that has followed me on Twitter, followed our discussions. He actually made this shirt. It's called wearconsciousness.com. He actually took my chart that I've shown you guys a couple times and made it into a shirt where it actually shows slavery and Jim Crow and mass incarceration across the timeline, so we can kind of understand how long black oppression has been, particularly against American history, and how we've been free for a relatively short time. And it really has context today with what we have going on. With what we have going on, I guess I had to bring Yvette in. Sometimes I do it by myself, but this is one that I felt I needed to bring the big guns in to kind of help me carry the load. And you want to say hello to the audience?
No, I want to say I want that shirt. Where's my shirt, brother? Where's my...
Hey, man. The brother reached out to me on Twitter, asked me could he use my chart, and then he said I'll send you a shirt. I said okay, that's fine. Let's get the information out. Let's get the information out. So where I wanted to start is I myself, I did a piece for the Griot, very critical of Obama's tepid speech some 4 days ago about the killing of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, and how this is a teachable moment. And I'm going to pull that up for a second so everybody can see that. And then I have another one actually coming out today, and it really is just talking about where we're at today and how everybody's calling for healing without dealing with the context of what America is today. And I guess I'll give you the floor to kind of like tell me what you think before we go into the Alton actual shooting.
Well, I don't know if I can necessarily go into it without going into exactly what happened.
Yeah.
To Alton Sterling, to Philando Castile. I don't think we can go into it without understanding that both these men are dead, and for being black, and the consequences of what being black means in American society. So I think we have to kind of go into that.
No, I totally agree, and I think that when you look at the context of both shootings, and we'll kind of bounce back and forth, it's so interesting just how night and day literally they are. Here you have first Alton Sterling being shot in front of a liquor store at midnight, selling CDs, trying to support his family. And then you have everyone saying, well, maybe he shouldn't have been in front of the liquor store. The respectability politics come out. And then you have Philando Castile. He's on errands with his family the next day, shutting all of that down, saying we still get shot down, even with our daughters in the back seat of the car, even with our spouses, significant others in the passenger seat, And I just wanted to get your opinion on those two differences, particularly.
Especially when you look at people say, well, he should have been in front of a liquor store. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't doing anything wrong. That's more than a misdemeanor, right? When you think about killing somebody, let's go back to what that used to mean. You kill somebody who was a threat. So this person was a robber, a thief, a rapist, a murderer. That's why you pull out your gun and you shoot him, because you think he's going to kill me. When I read about this guy, when I read about Alton Sterling, they say he was known in the neighborhood as CD Man, big man, whatever. Like, he wasn't known as a guy who was, he's about to rob you. I think that police who were policing that community would know that. But what happens is that context for black people goes out the window. So there's no context that can save a black person. So even if they know you're a good guy, whatever, that doesn't matter. Because what I see right now in terms of being a police officer, and what's triggering me right now is that you're a black face and you're a black male face. And in his case, he was a really big guy. So, you see them pinning him down. And then they pull out and they shoot him like point blank range. So you're pinned down in the ground and somebody just firing shots into you. So, the last time when I'm used to seeing that sort of thing, I see that sort of thing on National Geographic. When the little hunter guys come up on, the animal they're gonna take out, and they say we're gonna dart him and take him to whatever. But the thing about it is, even on those shows, they're using darts. They're not using bullets. They're gonna take this animal in and study him. They're killing him. And then you juxtapose that against Philando Castile, and what you have with him is this thing where he he's not even, he's a small guy. He's not doing anything wrong. He has a right to bear arms in his community. But he tells the cop, no, I have a gun. I don't know who shoots somebody and tells them first, you know what, I have a gun. Hold on. Especially when the other person also has a gun. So I think for me, what that proves in terms of society is that there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that can happen, that will overcome your blackness. There's no context that overcomes but you're black. And the only thing that cop heard was, you're black and gun. That's enough.
And it's been really interesting. Me and you exchanged texts with Michelle Alexander on this. I've had extensive conversations with Byron Allen, who just bought the Griot, on this topic. And so much of this comes back to bigger issues. One of those is the question of, why do we have to sell CDs in front of liquor stores at 11 o'clock? Why don't we have jobs that allow us to sleep at night? And it's not to say we don't have some people who do have those jobs, but we do have to begin to question the reality of undereducated America, undereducated black America. I mean, just last week it came out that since 1980, we spent 3 times as much on prisons when compared to education. And I don't know what we expected when we combine that with the resulting mass incarceration of African American males. We have more black males in prison than we've ever seen before in any modern society. And I come to that and don't blame Alton Sterling for standing out there and trying to support what I believe he had 5 kids. But what I do begin to question is the reality of, how do you heal a nation that has founded itself on such bad roots? And that's what I'm going to be dealing with in my piece in the Griot, in so many words. The economics behind this. And then in addition, as I understand it, the 911 call was by a homeless man. Not to say that delegitimizes the call at all, but it wasn't the store clerk or anything like that. So it didn't even seem like it really registered, like, let's check this out and see what's going on first.
Yeah, I think what has to kind of be removed from the conversation for black people is this idea of choice. That may extend to, white communities and everything like that, but there isn't a choice of, like, why is she selling CDs out in the, how do you know he had a choice? Like, there are times, especially if you're black, especially if you grow up poor, which is most black people that are working poor. You may not be in the ghetto with bullets flying by you, but even if you have a parent that has a job, you're part of the working poor. There isn't a lot of choice in that community. There isn't a lot of upward mobility. So this idea is like, he could have done something different. Like, how do you know that he could have done something different? Like, who are you talking to that's telling you that this guy had choice? And most of the people who say like he should have had choice don't even. You have white people who probably don't have any white friends. There are some studies that came out a while ago that show that most white people don't have black friends. So what are you even talking about? Like, how do you know he had a choice? And black people who say that are the people who kind of don't want to be associated with the Alton Sterlings of the world. And we associate with somebody with gold teeth. So you don't know what you're talking about. This man was just selling CDs. It's not a violent crime. It's a misdemeanor at best if he's trespassing.
And for me, this is one of the issues I kind of like tackle in my new criticism of us understanding the greater context of what we're seeing. This isn't just a race issue. It's a race and a gender and a class issue. Young, poor, undereducated black men are bearing the brunt of this. The mother of Alton Sterling comes out and says, this isn't racially motivated. Well, you wasn't out there selling CDs. And I fundamentally have to disagree. And I'm going to pull a chart up for you guys just so everybody can understand. This isn't a chart about attacking people. This is a chart about showing numbers. When we look at the incarceration rates across gender and race, what we see, and I've normalized for women and men, what we see is white women are incarcerated at a rate of about 130 per 100,000. Black women are incarcerated at a rate of about 320 per 100,000. White men are incarcerated at a rate of about 1,000 per 100,000. A normal society, just so everybody can have context, is about 250, 220 per 100,000. So generally, women are incarcerated at a normal rate regardless of race. Then when we get to black men, what we see is that across all black men, it's about 6,000 per 100,000. But the brunt of it is carried by black men between the ages of 20 and 39, where they're at nearly 10,000 per 100,000, the highest rate we've ever seen in any modern society. So until we really diagnose who should be talking about this issue, who should be really like saying what it's like to be so inundated with police pressures, we can't get forward. Because if you're talking to somebody say from one of the other sections, they don't know nobody in jail that look like them. They don't know what it's like to look like a prisoner and go into a liquor store. They don't know what it's like to be harassed and things of the sort. And again, it's not an attack. It's just the numbers. And I think a lot of people have never been exposed to the reality of these numbers. And what did you think about? So I guess, what do you think about those numbers? And then what did you think about the mother saying that this wasn't racially a race thing? That's what she said.
Well, I just
The mother of Alton Sterling, to be clear.
I don't know how, you can say that it's not a race thing. This past week we've seen nothing but videos of white men. There's a great image going around of a white guy like going for his gun, and a police officer just standing back saying like, no, don't do that. And he didn't pull it and he didn't empty the clip. That's not what happened. So I think to say that it's not about race, I think part of the problem is so many black people because of like how we're African Americans, and because we were slaves and because getting by in terms of how we got by as slaves was kind of going along, just trying to go along. So you don't really want to, ripple the waters. You know what I mean? You're trying to go forward. You're trying to maybe get justice in terms of a lawsuit. If not a lawsuit, then you want compensation. So part of what you want to do is not ripple the waters and not make white people upset and not say it's race, just say that it was wrong and he should be alive and let's move forward. And the problem is, it is about race. Like, he could have probably had a job. There are a lot of, you have white poor people in this country, but there are also a lot of white Alton Allens who, Alton Sterlings who are actually working jobs. You don't have to be a scientist to work a $35K a year job, who have jobs and who aren't selling CDs, who don't have to sell CDs outside of liquor stores late at night. So you have to ask yourself, why was he there? Like, what precluded him from actually, not being at that liquor store late at night to where the homeless guy called the police? And, why does this, I'm not saying anything bad about homeless people. I think people are all the same. That's how I view people. But the truth of the matter is that, if this was another guy, a homeless man's, testimony would not have carried as much weight. You have this guy out here, and it's like, well, this homeless man said that he had a gun. Well, let's talk to this guy about why he has a gun. People who were there say what happened was the guy Sterling didn't know why they were coming up on him, why they were trying to, push him down and do whatever. He was trying to ask questions, and then it escalated. And it escalated because the police didn't try to de-escalate. They can de-escalate white people all the time, but when it comes to black men, it's just like I'll shoot you and then ask you, once you're bleeding out, like, what happened?
And you can't help but have memories of Eric Garner as you watch the Alton Sterling video. One was a chokehold and the other, of course, a shooting, and it's just disheartening because it makes you wonder what it's like to be a poor young black male, especially that's larger size. And I think that so many people need to step back and understand, if you're not that, whether it's because you're a white woman or a light-skinned black girl that's in college, you're not that. And that doesn't mean you can't help bring light to the justice of it all. But you need to step back and understand there's no way for you to be that. It doesn't matter if you're somebody's mother and that makes the story relatable. It doesn't matter if you're somebody, even for me, as an African-American male, I'm not 300 pounds and I'm highly educated. I don't have warrants. So I got to understand that those people who do have warrants, who are caught in the cycle that we heard about with the South Carolina killing where the man was shot in the back. Essentially, he was so scared of going back to jail, he'd rather run away as slow as he was running than face the police again. And he was in jail for child support, basically, in a cycle of child support issues. So for me to say I understand that when I don't have child support issues, it's a lie. And we got to stop saying that this is where this is different than the civil rights is that during civil rights, black people as a group were much more attacked upon. This is a much more focused and nuanced attack on a class of black people and also a gender, meaning males. And we got to understand that, and we got to step back and stop speaking for them and stop saying what it's like to be them until you really, really stand a day in their shoes. That's just my feeling,
Well, I think what you're talking about is the lens through which we all view life, Right. So I think if I had, we talked about Philando Castile. I think if I had been in that seat and I had reached for my back pocket and said, "Officer, I have a weapon, I have a gun," I think I'd probably still be alive. Right. Now, so what I think we have to understand is that we have this tendency as Black people to see everything as a collective. And in terms of economics, we are in the same, we are similar or in the same position. But in terms of everything else, you have to understand that, like, all not Black is the same. Like, everybody's life isn't viewed through the same lens. We don't have the same experiences. My experience as a light-skinned Black woman is not even the same as your
light-skinned college-educated Black woman.
Yeah, as a college-educated Black woman, it's not even the same as your experience as a college-educated Black man. Like, there are still differences there, and we're still both college-educated Black people. So we can't say, well, we all Black, we Black the same. No, we're not Black the same. I'm a woman. I'm fair-skinned. You're still a man. You're a Black man. You know what I mean? You're a brown-skinned Black man. So there's still differences, even though we're both college-educated people. We can't say we're the same. Now take that all the way to say you're dark-skinned, you're bigger than you, and you're poor. Okay? And you've been in the system. There's no way for me to view life through that lens. So I think what I come to is this thing where I want these people, these Black men who are dealing with this, I want them to speak for themselves. I'm more than happy to help. I'm more than happy to lend my voice and do whatever I can. But you need to speak for yourself. I don't want anybody else speaking.
The difficulty is that they're all dead, and so we end up with their mothers.
Or in jail.
Well, I'm saying with the stories that we have, they're all dead, so we end up with their mothers. The very interesting dynamic of it all is one of the more powerful women that I've seen, and this is no shot at the other mothers. I'm against them siding with Hillary so easily, without any policy changes, without any recognition of her apologizing for mass incarceration. But particularly when you look at Diamond, who filmed the Minneapolis shooting, I mean, that was a strong Black woman to sit there and film it and really have America grasp what it's like to be Black for a moment. And I really come back to it, and I just feel there's so many issues here, and one of them that's not being unpacked enough is guns. And so, like, I live in California. We don't have these concealed weapon allowances in the same way, and we don't have open carry. So these two incidents, and I want people to understand they're different. There's, one had a concealed weapon license, as I understand it, that being Philando Castile, and the other was in a state that allows open carry, which means you can actually have it in your holster. Is that correct, as you understand it as well?
As I understand it, yes.
All right, so let's deal with Alton Sterling. So in Alton Sterling's case, these officers should have been trained to deal much better with somebody with a gun because they're in a state with open carry. But the question that comes to the head is now, does the talk that we give Black men, young Black men, have to include open carry isn't for us, maybe? We haven't heard the NRA jump out to say, how did the police shoot him down? He had an open carry license. We haven't heard that protection. So should the discussion include open carry? I know everybody wants to jump to the gun. Well, we have rights and we have a right to do everything. But if we're going to have a discussion about Black men and how they should approach officers, how hard is it for a man Alton Sterling size with a gun to approach an officer?
Well, let's take it one step further. The alleged Dallas shooter who shot the five officers, remember, that was a guy who was wrongly accused.
Yes.
Of the shooting, and part of the reason that he was wrongly accused was because people saw him with a gun on his back. Now he's also a license. He was exercising his Second Amendment rights, but he had to give that gun to a police officer. People always say when stuff pops off, a good guy with a gun can help. Well, not a good Black guy. He had to give his gun to the cops so that he wouldn't get shot. So I think you have to look at it.
Yvette, just to give context, up to this point, I'm gonna show images from the Castile and from the Alton Sterling shootings, but I'm not gonna show the video just out of respect for the family and what happened, and people have seen that enough. But I am gonna pull up a clip right now of what Yvette is talking about. There was a African American male, very typical African American male look, in which the police very quickly put this up as a suspect, not a person of interest, and I want him to speak for himself, and then I want you to finish.
What do you want to say to the people of this country that are watching right now, Mark?
Hey, I mean, I don't know what to say. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. The crazy thing about it is that I was down here, I couldn't get to my vehicle because of the roadblock, and hindsight 2020, I could have easily been shot.
Where were you when your picture was being plastered all over the country? You didn't even know?
I didn't know. We received a phone call that my face was on there as a suspect, and immediately I flagged down a police officer.
So while the country was looking for you, you were talking to police?
I was talking to police, laughing and joking with police officers.
And not only that, we were assisting the police. You know, we were part of the organization that put on this peaceful protest. And so when they started shooting, we went to the cops and asked, what could we do? How could we help them? And so the whole time we were helping cops. You know, and I understood, you know, just recently, less than 48 hours ago, a young man that had a permit to carry a gun was killed by a cop. And so when they started firing, when shots started firing, I went to the cop. I approached them, and I told my brother, I said, give your gun to this cop because we don't want an accident. We don't want them to come around the corner and see you with a gun and start shooting at you. And so when the first shots went off, we turned over our gun and let them have it, and then help direct traffic. We helped people get behind buildings. We were assisting. At the end of the day, we came for a peaceful protest. We didn't want anybody to be hurt. We came just for cops and the world to understand that those that are being killed by the cops, we want you guys to know that we're human, but we understand that cops are human. And so their human nature says we don't want anybody to be hurt.
So, Yvette, can you finish your thought? My apologies for breaking your line of thought if I did.
No, it was just interesting to me that in that moment that he had a gun, in that moment that black man had a gun and wasn't doing anything wrong, he still could have lost his life just from having a gun on his back. That's his right to do that, but just from having that gun on his back, he could have lost. And saw this black guy with a gun and said, "Shoot him." He could have died that night. And so I think what we have to understand, I think what we have to kind of grapple with is the fact that it goes back to what we've been saying. We're an underclass in the society. The underclass doesn't get to carry guns. The regular people get to carry guns. The lower caste doesn't get to carry guns. And that's where we are. That's not what we should be.
What we're essentially saying is the Fourth Amendment in our prior video that we did isn't for us if we have arrest warrants. And now the Second Amendment isn't for us either. So you know, we're moving backwards rather than forward. And the very interesting dynamic that I'm covering in my Griot piece is this reality of being an underclass. We found out that, you know, and it's funny because, again, Michelle sent this to us, and it came out in the UK first. The America took 2 days to get to this, but the Daily Mail had it a day ahead of America, which is Philando Castile had 52 traffic stops with 86 convictions for over $7,000. Now, what I almost make as an accusation / belief is these traffic stops serve multiple functions. One being to bring revenue in, and two, to keep people away from certain areas. And I fundamentally think that the cycle of being trapped in this lower class of America is something that people who have a license, who have never had old child support, really don't understand and think, well, it's just easy to fix that. And a lot of times it isn't. You're making $12 an hour and they're slapping fines on you of $1,000 plus. It isn't easy to collect at $8 or $7, $1,000 to give to the state. And so, like, what do you think about him having 52 traffic stops? And they said about 4 a year or something of the sort.
Well, it's a police state. It's like what we saw in Ferguson. I saw an interview with somebody, you know, in Ferguson they did the same thing. They just stopped people and living off the backs of black people, just making black people suffer so that people who work at the courthouse and the police officers and everybody can get paid. So we saw the same thing. And I saw an interview of this guy who said, listen, the way I work, I have to go through Ferguson. He said, I go around Ferguson just to make sure I don't have to go through that community and get a ticket. Black people shouldn't have to live this way. Poor people shouldn't have to live this way. So what you're saying is that we basically live in a kind of police state where the police do what they want to do, and they kind of they extort people to where they can't have a good life. And this also explains, you know, you hear white people say, well, if you're respectful of an officer when he comes, you know, blah, blah, blah. Philando Castile was respectful, but the second part about it is, this isn't something, when a police officer pulls me over, this is a rare thing. So I'm sitting straight up, I'm looking at whatever. It doesn't happen to me very often. this is something that happened to him all the time. So of course he's more careless than you would be, because it happens all the time. This is a regular occurrence, and they pulled him over allegedly because, well, he had a wide nose. So what you're really telling me is that that wasn't anything really wrong with the back of the car. You just use this as a reason to pull him over and harass him. So you have black men who are being harassed. You know, black women in the car seeing them getting shot down just because this guy's black. Just that's it.
And it's really interesting how nobody is really grasping him as a father. I mean, had this been any other group, from a white man to a black woman to particularly a white woman, the narrative of them as basically either a father or a mother would be front and center. I mean, I understand some dynamics of the family situation between him, the girlfriend, and the young child, but that essentially is a father figure that's in the front seat, and just the reality of what just occurred in that context. And I think that we're so apt. It's a trip, because even today CNN had this big special on Dallas, the ambush, and the narrative has entirely changed. But here you have a white officer, and as I understand, a Latin officer did the shooting in Minneapolis. This wasn't a white officer that shot Philando Castile, and you know, that's another dynamic that nobody is dealing with. But they shot him in front of what essentially is his daughter, and nobody really sees him as a father. It's just almost like just a boy again. And I think that I pointed this out to you before, how in each one of these shootings they look for mothers. It feels like to me to almost make these men into boys. They want to skip over the reality that some of these are boys and some of these are grown men. You know, that have families, wives, and children. And in Philando Castile's case, it was all brought home in a way that we hadn't seen before, because they were there. This is the first one where a lot of these are like random, like in front of a liquor store, or in Trayvon's case, which I know he wasn't killed by an officer, by himself, running between condominiums. In this case, the family is present, and nobody is really dealing with that trauma. She was arrested afterwards. Arrested, not given food or anything like that. And to not
dropped off. It just dropped off.
Yeah, and to not make a judgment of the police treatment that she got, it's just to me it's just a total drop of the ball by the Department of Justice, by the police department, and even by Obama for acknowledging that reality and trying to find a middle ground.
Well, no, I think so. I think that, the one thing that his girlfriend said is that this is not his biological child, but he's taken her on as his own. And she said he has one job and I have two jobs. These people were a family. They were living together as a family, and they were a family. They were a cohesive nuclear unit. That's what they were. And it's funny because you have even conservatives and even some black people who say we got to go back to the family. But even when somebody has a family, you don't want to acknowledge it as that. You don't want to acknowledge that these people as living as a family. That's who they were, and you don't want to see that. This cop gunned this man down in front of his daughter in the back seat. She's sitting there watching him die.
And he could have shot the daughter. They could have
shot her. They could have shot her. How reckless is this? That you just open fire. This guy is telling you he has a gun. You open fire. You don't care about the kid in the back. You even don't care about the girlfriend in the front. You don't care about the father in the front. You don't care about any of those people in that car. What we see is that you don't care about any people in that car. The only thing this officer was concerned about, he saw a black man and he heard a gun and he shot, and he didn't care who got hurt. He just wants to go home to his family at night. And even when there's no threat, like if there's a threat, we understand you want to go home to your family at night. But this guy didn't do anything, and especially when you learn from the people who worked with him. He was a cafeteria worker. You learn from the kids that he was a gentle guy. He was a nice guy. And the fact that what that really says is that, the white community can't see us. It doesn't matter if you're a nice guy. It doesn't matter if you're a good person. It doesn't matter if you're respectful. They can't see us. They can't see past blackness. And blackness to them, especially black maleness, is evil. It's apish. It's everything meaning. You get viewed as a monster, and your girlfriend is just a problem. But you are a monster, and that's what he saw when he opened fire.
And then what's a trip to me is how pundits, particularly black pundits on white-owned networks, are sitting around talking about healing without dealing with the underbelly that it's not for us to make that decision. We're not the ones that have police departments that perform these kind of acts. We so often forget that one, that police departments aren't like the Army. There are 18,000 of them, and they're all different. And then the second part, that they are extensions of the communities. So there's these meetings twice a month where they sit down and tell them, this street isn't getting enough attention. We need you to do this. This isn't just like some random decision by a rotten apple. This is a broken criminal justice system at work. And I think that for black pundits to want to create peace by lying about that, because they either don't know, or because they don't want to deal with the larger looming reality that you can't have some of these police departments without Philando Castile owing $7,000 and trying to pay that off $12 at a time. You can't have some of these white communities without police departments patrolling the outside to make sure that certain people don't get on the inside. That's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a reality of an extension of white privilege outside of their communities, not just police rotten apples in police departments acting out of sorts. You know?
No, I think you're exactly right. I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the consequence of blackness. And when you ask people, well, you know, you wag your finger at poor black people. Well, why don't you have any extra money? Why aren't you doing better with your life? You can put something away. Well, you can't put anything away if you're putting $1,000. If you already aren't making any money, and you're putting thousands of dollars away in tickets, that's a lot of money. Like $100 is a lot of money. Like, that's light bill money. You think about this guy paid thousands over the last few years. Like, that's a lot of money that he didn't have to send his little girl to camp or do anything, because I'm paying it to the police department so they can live good lives. So I'm failing so that other people can live good lives. That's what we are. We're people, the black community, we're people that fail so the people in the white community can have decent lives. That's what we are, and that's what we're here for. And that's why you're kind of chasing your tail to say, well, you could do better, because the whole system is designed for us not to do better. If the system does better, whole industries crash, because it's designed on us, you know, us taking money and extracting whatever little piece of wealth we have. And that's some destructive.
It's some insidious shit.
Yeah.
And so like, it's a trip, because, you know, I titled my piece real harshly that's coming out, and I'm gonna pull up the image of it. America can't heal until it stops the societal genocide of Black America. And I titled it harshly, so I had to follow that up. And I took a quote from the New York Times, which is real fitting for right now, so that people understand this is not just us overstating the reality. This is what the reality is. There's a piece that came out about missing black men last year. And the first line is, for every 100 black women not in jail, there are only 83 black men. The remaining men, 1.5 million of them, are in a sense missing. And they're missing because they're either dead, because they're in jail, or they're in prison. They are missing. And so, like, when you start to deal with this entire energy, I think we're really left in a place where we have to really challenge President Obama, Attorney General Lynch, to make some real changes. We have to move beyond marching. We have to move beyond discussions that deal with, how you feel about me because I'm black, and how I feel about you because you're white, to the reality of, you can't live like that anymore. You can't have a police department that essentially gives me tickets for a blocked driveway or for minutia, and doesn't give you tickets at all. We all got to take this hit. They need to pull you over just like they pull me over. Until we're ready to have that discussion, I don't think that we're going to move forward. And if we do move forward, it won't be beneficial to black people, particularly black men.
No, I think you're right, and I think that's why any movement has to be led by the people who are suffering the most. And I don't think that's what you have here. You know, you have, you know, older people. I saw, you know, Earl Ferry Hutchinson on TV, and we have, you know, a lot of people who come on, and you know they're older, they live good lives, and they came of age in a different era. They're not 21 right now. They're not 25 right now. They're not 30 and poor and in a poor neighborhood right now. So the question becomes, why are you talking to white people about what needs to happen? Like, why are you the decision maker? And you can be in a room and have people tell you, and there's communities, hey, this is what we feel, this is what we want, and you can help translate that into policy, and then go forward and have the conversation. But the fact that you just show up for the camera and you feel like you have the answer in terms of we all got to come together and have this isn't about hearts and minds, it's about policies. That's what we don't. It doesn't matter. I don't care about anybody's hearts or I don't care about white people's hearts, like policy. Like, there's data that supports data that supports that in poor black communities, they're being ticketed to death. They're being given warrants. Their lives are being made miserable. They're being harassed. So I don't care about your heart. I don't care about what you feel. I care about whether you recognize the data and you're willing to translate that data into a policy that helps black people. That's it.
No, I agree. And like on a numbers level, they had data in and around Ferguson where you had places that had 12,000, 13,000 residents with 30,000 warrants. I mean, we're not even dealing with the consequence of having a warrant now after the Fourth Amendment decision by the Supreme Court, but just the reality that, you know, you're averaging 2 or 3 warrants per citizen just tells you something is horribly, horribly wrong. And you know, the 2 last issues I'm going to deal with, you know, and is first this Dallas shooter, you know, young 25-year-old black male who wasn't part of the, I guess, the protest that day, but jumped out of a Tahoe and decided to be a maniac, which is what I call him what he was, and shoot all these officers, and how it's been kind of piggybacked onto Black Lives Matter. What do you feel?
Well, I don't. The shooter told the officers, they admitted that I'm not affiliated with any group. How clear is it? He says I'm not affiliated with any group. Now he may have been tired of black people being murdered and slaughtered on the street, but he said that he's not affiliated. So if he says he's not affiliated, he's not affiliated. Like Black Lives Matter has never encouraged violence of any shape. But I think what you have here is that people are in power realize that, you know, even regular white people are kind of catching on, and people are saying, yeah, life for poor black people is pretty messed up. Life, especially for poor black men, pretty shitty. So I think I think they don't want that to catch on. So the best way to have that not catch on is to vilify Black Lives Matter and say, look, this is a terrorist organization. This is awful. Look at what these people did. So I know why they're doing it, because they want to stop any chance of a movement. It's not even about whether or not a movement exists or whether or not policy actually happens. They don't even want to see like the opportunity for that door to open. And so that's where we are. But no, of course he didn't have any connection to Black Lives Matter. And I saw someone else on TV say, well, he was looking at Afrocentric websites, and that's how he became radicalized. Like he's a Muslim, like he's some kind of Muslim terrorist who just flew in from Yemen, you know, and Syria, and he's decided to, you know, part of ISIS. And it's just like, listen, black people in this country don't need any kind of website to be radicalized. That's just daily. That's just especially for poor black people. That's daily life in America. What you have here when you go to these websites is that you can at least have some type of camaraderie where people understand what you're going through. So it's just another case of just like, you know, trying to railroad black people as being the cause for this. Everywhere you go, it's like this. The cause for this man is other black people, not white society. The cause is Black Lives Matter, or it's black websites, and it's like, no, the cause for this guy is white society. Like, you know,
it's so interesting to me again that black pundits are coming on and talk about healing as they're talking. The narrative is switched in a way where, like, we've had protests with black people in mass in cities across the country picking up rocks and sticks and attacking officers. This was one lone shooter. It's been proven this is a lone shooter. Similar to what we saw in Charleston. When what we saw in Charleston happened, nobody attenuated that to all of white America and said that white America is killing black folks. We said that we had a crazy shooter that went into a church and shot up some people. Why can't we do that here? And then when we take it one step further, the reality of how it's being contextualized is as though Black Lives Matter, similar to, say, a group like the Panthers, is training people on the kind of maneuvers that he was doing. They don't do that. So he was trained by the Army. So fundamentally, you know, you have him being black, but even more so, you have him being an Army reservist and having went to Afghanistan. And that's where he got his training. But nobody's making the connection between him and his Army background. They're automatically trying to connect him to black lives. And I do understand part of it is what he was hollering out, supposedly, which is, you know, things that were about I only want to kill white cops and things of this sort. And then you have the context of the shooting and the march that only add to that. But we have to start getting honest about the reality of how we take individual cases and sensationalize them. When you look at Philando Castile, it happened a day after Alton Sterling. When you look at Philando Castile and Alton Sterling, you can't help but look at them in the context of Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice, Eric Gardner. You can't help but see and the countless other names that we don't even have because we didn't get recordings. So for me, I personally feel deep condolences, not as out of any connection of personal responsibility, but deep condolences for the families of those slain officers, because they were doing their civic duty. But I do at the same time feel that black people don't need to feel that because they're black. You know?
No, we didn't. This is not as if we were part of an insurrection and we as a group had a meeting and decided that this was going to be something that we were going to enact as an act of terror or something. We didn't do that. And white people don't ever get accused of doing that after one person. Was everybody, even if you go all the way back, Tim McVeigh, whatever. I mean, when has a white person ever been indicted for a group? We had a whole group of outlaws, I'll call them, motorcyclists, start shooting at each other and killing each other at a restaurant. And nobody said, oh, God, we got to do something about white people and white culture. Look at what these white people are doing. Nobody ever connects white people to their own culture or to their own or to the group. So no, we don't have any responsibility. We don't have to apologize. We can say we feel bad for the families and for the people who died. But that's just out of being a human being and being able to empathize and show kindness and compassion. We don't feel bad because we had any complicity in this, and we should push back against any idea of that.
I agree. And I guess the last thing that I want to deal with, and I'm going to give you a word on it, and then I'm going to add my 2 cents. And I'm going to pull up a video before you say your word, is the statements by Farrakhan, which were essentially about raising arms and how we got to be ready to, in so many words, it sounded like fight. And I just wanted to know what you thought about what Farrakhan said. So here's the video.
There is no freedom without the shedding of blood. I'm sorry to have to say that. Nonviolence is not going to bring the land back to us. Our unity will keep us from having to fire a shot. But if we are not united, the only way we're going to get what belongs.
So now that we're on the other side of the video, what do you think? And I did cut it some because it isn't short enough to actually fit properly into this video. But what did you think about what Farrakhan said?
I mean, I've always felt the same way about that video. I think it's reckless. I think it's very reckless in a country where you're the minority. 13% maybe right now of the population. To tell people, to encourage people to do that, because people are listening to Farrakhan. And there are young people listening to Farrakhan who could end up in jail for the rest of their lives based on something like that, or dead. So I think you have to be very, very careful. And like I've said before, Farrakhan is over thousands of people. Like, there are thousands of people in the Nation of Islam. Whatever he wants doing, he can do. He doesn't need to call on black men outside of his own circle of religion there. So I would caution black men especially in terms of that kind of rhetoric right now. White people got a lot of guns.
And not just white people, the government as a whole. I mean,
tanks. They got mortar guns. They got tanks. They got bombs.
Yeah, for me, the last time that raw numbers mattered in a riot was like the turn of the 20th century, like when slavery was ending. Today, we're not equipped. I went to South Africa and they were talking about the apartheid movement, and they were saying like during our age of civil rights in the 60s, a whole generation of them went into the bush and learned how to like actually fight, shoot AKs, things like that. So when apartheid happened, they came back with a mission, and that mission was to bring about major changes through violence if needed, and that led to them actually getting large amounts of land and getting redistribution of resources. We aren't there, and I think fundamentally to tell untrained black people to rise up. When I say untrained militarily, most black people don't even have a gun. To say rise up, the reality of Farrakhan's statement is largely empty. I mean, can you rise up in your mind? I definitely think so, but there's a key to this change, and that key is President Barack Obama and Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Black people should take their energy from marching and continue it, but also focus it on Attorney General Loretta Lynch and Barack Obama and demanding major changes. Demand that Attorney General Loretta Lynch make major changes to police department normal policies. Demand that Barack Obama start writing executive orders, and in which case, instead of cutting food stamps, in which case that we start seeing changes in the way that bank loans are given to black people so that we can hire our own, so they aren't outside of a liquor store at 12 at night selling CDs. They're working for a black business. Change the fact that our education system is largely broken and write executive orders to get more money funneled towards local inner city schools. These are the kind of things that I think will absolutely lead to change. And I think we need to move beyond the discussion of what makes us feel good, and you're white and I'm black and let's just get along, to understanding that white privilege is undergirded by black underclassism.
Yeah, and white privilege is undergirded by money. And the only way that we can make up any of that is if we have money. And you don't have money by going off on your own or trying to do it. You have money because the government opens doors for you. The government makes institutions, because this isn't about individuals. That's why this whole conversation about, well, you like black people, I like you, we see each other's hearts. No, this is about institutions. This is about whole institutions that support people and live off us. So they live off us and extract everything we have, and they support white communities. Not all white communities. I'm not saying they're not white poor people. We're not saying that. But we're saying disproportionately the people who are the poorest in this country are black. And that's what we're saying. And that's the only entity that can fix that institutionally. This isn't an individual problem. Stop seeing this through the lens of I like white people. The only entity that can fix that is government.
And we right now have a black president and a black attorney general for the first time in this nation's, well, actually second time, because of course we had Eric Holder before this, but in totality for the first time in American history, and we're putting far too little pressure on them. So, you tuned in today, and I thank you guys so much. Thank you, Yvette, for coming on. Let's keep it moving forward. Keep it moving forward peacefully as possible, and start putting the pressure that we need to get some changes. Thank you again from Tone Talks.